Have you ever stopped to think about what really happens after death? I can assure you that what I'm about to reveal here isn't a theory or a made-up story. It's something that completely changed the way I view life, faith, and even spiritual warfare. I died, and in that critical moment, when I no longer had control over anything, I had a real encounter with Jesus, and what he revealed to me about speaking in tongues has nothing to do with what many preach superficially, nor with the idea that it's just a religious detail. This revelation is so powerful that it explains why so many Christians fail to break through spiritually, why many live praying without success, and why so many miracles seem distant from ordinary life. What Jesus showed me is the key that unlocks a direct connection with the Holy Spirit, a form of prayer that transcends human logic and invades the supernatural. This is precisely the secret of those who live protected, strengthened, and filled with spiritual power, while others remain trapped in weakness and confusion. If you watch this video until the end, you'll understand why speaking in tongues isn't just a gift, but a secret weapon against everything the enemy has used to try to destroy you. Get ready, because this revelation will turn your mind upside down and can completely transform your life. Starting today, what you just heard has the power to completely change your spiritual life. This revelation has already opened your eyes to the power of praying in tongues, and you now know how to access God's power in a way many have never experienced. This knowledge is rare and precious, and sharing it is the simplest way to give back what you've just received. Like and subscribe to the channel to continue receiving truths that strengthen your faith and transform your journey. Each new video brings even deeper revelations that will lead you to live in victory and authority every day. Understand one thing. When someone says they died and came back, many people immediately think it's an invention, an exaggeration, or even something insignificant. But the truth is that going through this experience changes anyone forever. Death takes away all control, all strength, all the security that seemed stable, and places you in a situation where nothing depends on your ability or intelligence. It is at that moment that what is real, spiritual, and eternal appears before your eyes, unfiltered. There is no distraction, no excuse, no mask. And that's exactly where it all began. In experiencing death, I didn't just find emptiness or endless darkness, as many describe. I encountered Jesus, not as a distant memory from church or as a figure I'd only heard about, but as a living, present, and authoritative presence. His presence is unlike anything you've ever felt in your life. It's a blend of peace and power that dismantles any resistance within you. And the most impactful thing was not just being before him, but what he showed me. Think about it. How many times have you heard about prayer, faith, and the Holy Spirit, but it all seems so distant from your reality that you end up thinking it's something nice, but without practical effect? Well, in that moment, Jesus revealed something so concrete to me that it made perfect sense. The act of speaking in tongues, which many people treat as a detail or even as something strange, is actually one of the greatest spiritual secrets there is. This is not a human invention. It's not an empty ritual. It's a real key to direct access to the power of the Holy Spirit. It was as if he were saying, this is the point that many are overlooking, and because of this, they live weak, insecure, and spiritually defeated. And here I want you to stop and think about your own life. How many times have you tried to seek God and felt like the words wouldn't come? How many times have you wanted to pray, but it seemed like your prayer bounced off the ceiling? This feeling of helplessness is real. And it happens because when we try to connect with heaven only with our logic and human words, we become limited. But Jesus showed that speaking in tongues breaks this barrier, because it's no longer you praying with what you know, but the Holy Spirit praying through you. This changes everything. It's like going from a weak connection that drops constantly to a direct channel, without interruptions or interruptions. I know this may seem overwhelming to you right now, but think about the difference this can make in your spiritual journey. While many go around in circles, not understanding why their prayers seem unanswered, there is a path that guarantees direct access to God's heart. And I'm not talking about theory. I'm talking about something I've seen and experienced so vividly that it's beyond doubt. At this point, I'd even like you to tell me what you think in the comments. Write the word revelation down here, because I want to see who really understood the seriousness of what is being said. The most incredible thing is that this revelation wasn't something distant, like a meaningless lesson. Jesus showed that speaking in tongues isn't just a beautiful gift, but a weapon of spiritual survival. And when you stop and look around, you realize how the enemy has a vested interest in hiding this truth. Because a Christian who understands this secret and practices it becomes untouchable in many areas. They don't easily let themselves be overcome by fear, doubt, or the pressures of everyday life. They're someone who walks strengthened, who finds answers even in the midst of confusion, who feels peace even in chaotic situations. Now, understand one thing. This doesn't mean life becomes perfect or problem-free, but it does mean you begin to live on a different level of authority. And that's exactly where I want you to reflect. How many problems you face today could be faced differently if you had this direct channel to God fully functioning in your life? How many difficult decisions could be guided with clarity? How many desperate situations could be overcome with peace? This revelation isn't about something beautiful that moves you. It's about a practice that radically changes the way you deal with life, faith, and even the attacks you face every day. The enemy knows this and therefore tries in every way to discredit or ridicule this gift. But now you know there's much more behind it. I could stop here, but I need to open a point that will make you even more curious. Because Jesus' revelation about speaking in tongues wasn't just information, it was a warning. He showed that without it, many remain spiritually vulnerable, even when they think they're standing firm. And it's precisely in this detail that lies the difference between a life of spiritual defeat and a life of constant victory. This is just the first part of what was revealed. There's a next step that shows even more clearly why this secret has been hidden from so many people and how you can use it to unlock things that have seemed stuck in your life for years. Understand that what has been shown so far is already shocking. Speaking in tongues is not just a strange religious practice, but a key that connects you directly to the Holy Spirit. But I need to take you further, because what comes next explains why so many people live with a faith without strength, a prayer without life, and a tiring journey. When Jesus revealed this secret to me, he made it clear that praying in tongues is like the breath of the soul. Just as the body cannot survive without air, the spiritual life cannot survive without this practice. And that is why many are spiritually suffocated, trying to seek God with human breath, when the answer lies in letting the Spirit pray through them. Think about it. When you breathe, you don't make a conscious effort all the time. It's something natural, automatic, that keeps you alive without you even realizing it. Praying in tongues is like that. It keeps your spiritual life active even when your mind is tired, confused, or unable to find the words. How many times have you found yourself in situations where you didn't even know how to begin to pray? When your heart was so heavy that any word seemed empty? Well, that's exactly where the power of this gift comes in. It overcomes your limitations and places the Holy Spirit in control of your prayer. You stop depending on your own abilities and start depending directly on God. This has a direct and very practical impact. When you pray in tongues, you're not just repeating meaningless sounds. You're releasing a spiritual language that builds your faith, strengthens your inner self, and opens invisible pathways for the impossible to happen. It's like tuning your life into heaven. And here I want you to reflect and even comment below. Have you ever been praying and suddenly felt an inexplicable peace come over you? Write the word Cain in the comments, because that's what it really feels like when the Holy Spirit takes over your prayer. Now think about the difference this makes in someone's life. A Christian who understands and practices this revelation doesn't live solely by human effort. They carry within themselves a source of constant strength. They can face difficult days with a firmness no one understands because they no longer depend on external motivation, but on something that flows from within. This is what Jesus wanted to show. Without praying in tongues, you try to survive spiritually. With praying in tongues, you live in fullness. And this is just the beginning, because it remains to be revealed why this secret has been so attacked and how it becomes a real weapon against darkness, something the enemy fears more than you can imagine. Understand one thing. By now you've realized that praying in tongues is like the breath of the soul, something that keeps you spiritually alive even when your mind doesn't know what to say. But now I need to take you to the next level, because what Jesus revealed isn't just about keeping your faith strong, but about accessing an invisible power capable of bringing about real, tangible changes in your life. This isn't theory. It's not just fancy talk from the pulpit. It's a spiritual practice that transforms. Many spend years on their knees, fasting, crying out, and leave the same way because they're trying to push with human strength a door that can only be opened by the Holy Spirit. When you pray in tongues, that door opens because you stop relying on your limitations and begin to pray according to what God knows is necessary. Think about it. How many times have you asked for something and it didn't happen? And sometime later, realize that what you so desperately wanted had hindered or even destroyed your life. This is the difference between your vision and God's vision. Praying in tongues aligns you with His will, and this alignment opens paths your mind would never have been able to see. It's as if you were walking through a dark maze, stumbling around without knowing which way to go, and suddenly the Holy Spirit turns on the light and guides you to the exit. Human logic is limited, but when the Spirit intercedes through you, He opens opportunities that didn't exist, brings answers you never would have found alone, and resolves situations that seemed hopeless. And we're not just talking about material blessings, we're talking about much greater and more serious things. Physical miracles that medicine can't explain, people freed from deep-seated addictions, homes restored, lives saved from accidents that seemed fatal. Testimonies like these happen everywhere and almost always arise from moments of prayer in tongues when the person didn't even have the words, but the Holy Spirit knew exactly what needed to be released in the spiritual world. That's when you understand the difference. It's not you trying to convince God to act, but God acting through you. That's real power. Now I want you to stop for a moment and think about your own life. What areas seem stuck today? Maybe your health is crying out for help. Maybe your family is experiencing endless conflicts. Maybe your finances seem like an impossible burden to bear. Or maybe it's your mind, tired, suffocated by anxiety and doubt. Now imagine what can happen when you activate this gift and let the Holy Spirit work through you. Situations that currently seem like a dead end can become testimonies. Doors you've given up knocking on can suddenly open. What seemed impossible to resolve begins to be undone piece by piece until victory becomes visible. And all this because you stopped relying on your logic and allowed heaven to pray through you. That's why I want to see who really understands the seriousness of this matter. Comment below with the word miracle, because I want to know who is ready to experience this power in practice. It's not just about believing, it's about living. When you write, you are committing to seek this level of intimacy with the Holy Spirit, and I want that to be recorded. But let me tell you something even more profound. This practice isn't just for receiving blessings and personal transformations. Jesus showed that it's also a weapon of spiritual warfare. And here things get even more serious, because the enemy doesn't fear the rehearsed words you memorize, nor the beautiful speeches that impress those around you. What he fears is when you pray in tongues, because it's a spiritual code he can't decipher. The devil can hear your prayers aloud. He can try to anticipate your plans when you speak with your own mind, but when you pray in tongues, he has no access. It's like a secret communication between you and God, shielded, inaccessible, impossible to interrupt. This means that when you pray in tongues, you're not only seeking strength for yourself, you're also standing up against invisible attacks that you often don't even notice. How many problems have appeared in your life unexpectedly? How many times have you been caught off guard by situations that seemed out of nowhere? What you don't see is that, in the spiritual world, there are constant battles taking place, and when you activate this prayer, you are actively participating in the war, protected and strengthened. The enemy has no way of resisting what the Holy Spirit declares through you because he doesn't understand, he can't counterattack, and therefore, he is forced to retreat. Do you now realize the magnitude of this revelation? It's not just a religious detail, it's not a strange ritual, it's a spiritual secret that transforms lives, unlocks miracles, and defeats attacks that could have destroyed you. And it's precisely because it's so powerful that the enemy has fought to discredit, ridicule, and even hide this practice. Many have fallen into this trap, but you can no longer say you don't know. Now the decision is yours. Live limited by what? Your mind can reach or immerse yourself in the dimension where the Holy Spirit takes control and guides every step. And I need to tell you in advance, what you've discovered here isn't all. There's an even more impactful revelation from Jesus, and it explains exactly why this gift is so attacked, so ridiculed, and at the same time so feared by the darkness. It's in this next part that you'll understand how to use this power not only to strengthen yourself, but to change the atmosphere around you and transform entire environments. By now you've understood that praying in tongues is more than keeping your faith alive. It's the most direct way to access the power of the Holy Spirit and unleash miracles that logic can't explain. But Jesus didn't stop there. He made it clear that this practice isn't just a key to aligning with God's will, but also the invisible force that sustains miracles, transforms environments, and changes realities. It's as if he were saying, you still have no idea what this can do when it becomes part of your daily life. And this is where the teachings of great men of faith make perfect sense. They always showed that prayer isn't just a discipline, but the constant breath of life for those who want to live in the supernatural. But speaking in tongues takes this to another level, because it doesn't depend on finding the words or feeling motivated, but on the Spirit flowing directly. Now think with me. How many times have you felt spiritually weak, tired of fighting without the strength to even open your mouth and begin to pray? This is the moment when most give up, but it is precisely there that praying in tongues shows its true power. Because even when you have no more energy, it continues to build you up from within. It's like an invisible charger that connects your soul to an inexhaustible source. This is what explains why many spirit-filled men and women face pressure, persecution, and battles without breaking down. They have discovered this secret and live plugged into this source. And what's more, when you start practicing this consistently, things begin to happen that you never imagined. People are healed, doors open, situations that seemed stuck move forward. Not because you found the right word or prayed a beautiful prayer, but because the Holy Spirit took control. I know stories of people who were praying in tongues without even knowing exactly what to intercede for, and in the same instant, someone in another part of the world received deliverance from an accident, an illness, or a bad decision. This is real, it is concrete, and it is impossible to explain it any other way than by understanding that the Spirit prays with perfection where we only see confusion. Now, let me tell you something you may never have stopped to consider. This power doesn't just affect you. When you begin praying in tongues, the atmosphere around you changes. The environment that was previously heavy, laden with fear or spiritual oppression, begins to be transformed. It's as if God's presence is released in invisible waves that cleanse the air and break down resistance. Anyone who has experienced this knows what I'm talking about. You enter a place and feel that everything is strange and negative, but after praying in tongues, suddenly that weight lifts and an inexplicable peace takes over. This isn't emotion, it's spiritual reality. And I want you to reflect on this now. What would your life be like if, instead of living defensively, waiting for the next problem to arrive, you began to carry this strength continuously? You wouldn't just be reacting, but changing the atmosphere wherever you went. This means your home can become a place of peace, your family can experience liberation, and even your work can be transformed when you release this presence into the environment. This is the real impact of praying in tongues, and that's why Jesus showed so clearly that it's not a detail but a necessity for those who want to live empowered. Now, I want you to comment below the word strength, because it will show that you understand that we're not just talking about emotional experiences, but about a practice that generates real impact. By writing this word, you declare that you want to experience this strength every day. And know this, the enemy knows the power of this gift. He may resist preaching, mock your faith, and try to attack you in various ways. But when you pray in tongues, he has no access to what is being said. It's a secret code between you and God that neutralizes any strategy of darkness. This is precisely why he fights so hard to ridicule this gift, because he knows that when you understand and practice it, you become untouchable in areas that were previously vulnerable. But the revelation doesn't end there. Jesus revealed something even more profound about the impact this practice has on the lives of those who put it into practice. There's a dimension of victory and authority that few know, and that's what we'll explore next. In this next section, you'll discover why so many give up before reaching the true power that's already available, and how you can become someone who not only survives, but wins daily. Now we've reached a point where everything begins to become even clearer. Praying in tongues isn't just something that strengthens you internally or changes the atmosphere around you. It also directly impacts your practical life, the way you face everyday challenges, and the quality of the connections you build. This is where many go wrong because they try to separate spiritual life from everyday life, as if speaking in tongues were something reserved only for worship or extreme situations. But Jesus made it clear that this gift is to be used daily, in every detail of your journey, because the Holy Spirit isn't just at work on Sundays. He wants to be at work in every step you take. Think about it. How often does your mind feel confused, consumed by seemingly endless thoughts? How many decisions have you had to make without knowing if you were choosing correctly? This is when praying in tongues shows its practical power. It brings clarity, balance, and direction. When you begin to pray, even without understanding it in your mind, the Spirit begins to organize within you what seemed disorganized. Problems that were once enormous begin to be seen differently because you gain discernment. It's as if God were opening a map before you, showing shortcuts and warning of pitfalls. That's why people who practice this are able to make safer decisions and live less anxious lives. And what's more, this practice directly impacts your relationships. Do you know why? Because praying in tongues makes you more sensitive to what comes from God and more resistant to what is superficial. You begin to clearly perceive who truly adds to your life and who is merely draining your energy. This naturally leads you to distance yourself from empty relationships and connect only with people who have purpose. This is where a powerful lesson comes in. True spiritual bonds are not born from fleeting affinities, but from connections created by the Spirit. When you practice this, you attract people who vibrate on the same spiritual frequency, and at the same time you no longer feel the need to maintain meaningless bonds. Now, to make this even clearer, I want you to stop for a moment and think, how many times have you persisted in relationships that only left you exhausted? How many times have you tried to fit into places that had nothing to do with your essence? Well, praying in tongues is like an invisible sieve that filters all of this. You begin to have clarity about who should stay and who should go. And the most interesting thing is that this doesn't happen forcedly, but naturally. You simply feel peace with those who are meant to be around, and discomfort with those who aren't part of your purpose. This is where I want to generate an interaction with you. Write the word clarity in the comments, because it shows that you understand that spiritual life is not separate from practical life, and that speaking in tongues has a direct impact on your choices, your relationships, and the direction of your life. Now understand the depth of this. Besides strengthening your inner life and reorganizing your mind, this practice begins to shape your external connections. This means you stop living trapped in superficial circles and begin to build meaningful, deep bonds aligned with your purpose. And that's precisely why, the more you practice this, the more selective your life becomes, but in a good way. You don't lose people. You gain quality in the people who remain. And this transforms not only your spiritual journey, but your entire social and emotional life. What you just watched has already opened your eyes to understand that praying in tongues is much more than a religious detail. It's a key to transformation that strengthens your spiritual life, clears your mind, and changes the atmosphere around you. This revelation has already begun to generate changes within you, and now you can be part of the impact it will have on others. Like and subscribe to the channel so this message continues to reach more lives. Write the word victory in the comments, because this will mark your commitment to live this experience in practice. And get ready, because the next video will bring an even deeper revelation, something that completes what you learned today, and that will take you to a level of understanding and power few know. It is precisely this next step that will tie everything together and show why Jesus made a point of revealing this secret.